Welcome to the Participatory Grantmaking in Gosport information session. I will, from now on, call it PGM rather than Participatory Grantmaking because it's really, really hard for me to say. And I don't know how you do it, Natasha, when you have to say it all day, every day. So PGM is what we'll call it. You'll have seen, hopefully, that we're recording the session. So if you don't want to appear in that, that's absolutely fine. Just pop your camera off. I will ask you to keep muted while we're presenting the initial information. But as I say, there'll be a chance to ask questions later on. I have got some notes beside me, which I will inevitably forget at some point and then panic and have to go and check. So if you see me leaning off, that's why. If you have any questions while I'm talking, please do feel free to pop those in the chat box. My colleague Laura will be in there responding where she can, and then she's going to collate those and ask them at the end. Fantastic. And if you haven't introduced yourself in the chat, please do. That would be lovely. Cool. So next slide, please, Jake. Welcome. For those that don't know Energise Me, let me just give you a very quick introduction to who we are. So we are a charity that works across the whole of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and we exist to support physical activity. So we want to really tackle all of the things that get in the way of people leading active lives and being active in the way that works for them. And what that means is we work in lots of different ways with healthcare sector, maybe to help social prescribers embed physical activity. We do lots of work with schools, helping them think about physical activity beyond PE and sport. And we do lots of really exciting stuff with grant funding too. So funding is really only a small part of what we do, but I think because it's quite a tangible part, that sometimes that's what people know us for. We have done a bunch of different sort of traditional grant funds over the last few years. I have been with Energise Me about 7 years now, and I've led on a couple of those, so some of you might know me from that. But my background really is in youth and community participation work. So being able to bring the participation stuff and the grant stuff together is really, really exciting. And we're really pleased to be able to work with Camden Giving on this particular project. So I'll just hand over to Natasha to introduce herself and Camden Giving.
Hi, yeah, I'm Natasha, and as Camden Giving implies, we are based in Camden in London, and we're a charity, and we were set up 9 years ago, and I've been there since we were set up. And our mission is to make sure people have the tools, the skills and the networks they need in order to overcome inequality themselves. And we do a lot of work outside of Camden to support other organisations to do that, because only 23% of people in the country feel they can influence local decisions, and we think that has an impact on people's hope and people's job prospects and people's ability to get on with their neighbours. So by bringing people together to do decision making, we've seen the impact it has on communities, and we've seen the impact it has on individuals, and we want to help that happen in places far beyond Camden. So we're very excited to come down and support with this programme.
Thanks, Natasha. So Natasha's going to be here to answer some questions towards the end if you've got any that she's better placed to answer. But also she's got much more experience than me in PGM. So I told her if I get anything wrong, she's allowed to jump in and correct me. So one of the questions that I think some of you are probably asking is, what even is participatory grant making? What we mean by that is that it's all about giving up that decision-making power to the people that the money is there to serve. So if you think about traditional grant making, it often means, an organisation writes their funding application, and that can take up huge amounts of their time and their resource. And then they sort of send it off into the ether, and they maybe don't know how many other people are applying, how long that will take, who makes the decisions, how the decision gets made. You know, the choice about where that funding goes or how it gets there is decided behind closed doors by staff or trustees who are often miles away, like literally and metaphorically, from the people that they want to be helping, from the communities that they want to be helping with that funding. So PGM is something of an umbrella term, and I'm still learning all about it. And there's lots of different ways of doing it as well. I think that's important to say. This isn't the only way to do it. There's lots of different things. But it really is about that power. It's about acknowledging that traditional grant making keeps that power behind closed doors in the hands of a very few people, and PGM tries to put that power back into local communities. So if you think about crowdfunding is a type of PGM, you know, individuals get to decide if and how and where they donate their money. Your Tesco or Waitrose tokens that you vote with in the supermarket, they are a form of PGM. You're voting on where that supermarket gives its grant funding to. So in our case, we have a grant pot and we want Gosport organisations and residents together to decide how that is awarded and where it goes. And we will talk a little bit about the detail of that today. What I didn't do was set myself any sort of timer on how long I was going to talk for. So if we start to run out, then I will gabble, probably. So apologies. We can just skip one ahead, please, Jake. So just before we go into some of the detail about how it's going to look, I wanted to just talk a little bit about why we're doing it. And it really is all about this sort of power sharing, power changing ethos. Fundamentally, we know that if we keep doing the same thing the same way, we will get the same results. And we wanted to try doing our grant making in a different way to see if we got different results. Will it help us reach new organisations, new people? Will we learn new things about what works to help people become more physically active? And on the screen, you'll see these are some of the things that we think PGM will help us to do better. I won't read them out to you, and these slides will go out afterwards, or you can take screenshots if you want to. But there's lots of stuff about relationships in there, and I think the one that really stands out for me personally is supporting the good stuff that's happening rather than the people that have got the most time and money and resource to write the bid. Next slide, please. So who we are asking to be involved in this project, we really want people with lived experience of physical activity, of health inequalities, and people with the learned experience, the people that work with those residents, to come together, because we think that that's two really important sides of the coin around how money gets into those systems. So we're asking roughly 6 organisations, and each organisation to bring a service user or a participant to the sessions, and I'll get into the detail of those sessions in a second. So the panel will be roughly 12 people in total. It might be 10, it might be 14, too many, and probably the decision making becomes really quite tricky, and too few, and it's not as representative as we want. But I think there's never a perfect number, but we'll try our best. There's a lot about this process that is just, we'll try and see what happens, which for those that know me is not my favourite place to be, but I'm giving it a go. It's really important that it is the same people for each of those sessions. So if your organisation wants to join us, we're really keen that it's the same person that comes each time and the same service user that that you bring with you each time, because we'll be going through a process, making decisions together. So sort of chopping and changing will make that much more difficult. And I would really encourage you, if your organisation wants to be a part, to really think about who is the best person, not only to take part in the process, but also to be that support for your service user, because this might be quite new and quite scary. I mean, it might be quite new and quite scary for you. It is for me, but it certainly will be for some of those service users. So you might be thinking that, you know, our fundraiser would be a brilliant person to give their expertise, but are they the best person to also support that service user? And we're just asking you to think about that. You know, we're not telling you who to bring at all. Panelists definitely do not need any previous experience of grant making or fundraising at all. But we do ask that everybody is 18 plus. We are not bringing young people into this process this time, but I'm hopeful that we can do it again at some point with young people, but I haven't asked permission for that. Cool. One question that people have asked me, 18 is still young, you're right, Kirsty. One question people have asked me is, if we have more than 6 organisations that want to join, how will we decide on the panellists? So I just think a couple of things to bear in mind are, firstly, the areas of Gosport that we've identified that have the lowest activity levels and the highest need are Town Centre and Bridge Mary. So organisations that representatives that live and work in those areas, we would definitely want some of those on the panel. So when you fill in the expression of interest form, if you do have people that live and work in Bridge Mary in town, definitely flag that for us. And we're keen to have quite a diverse range of experiences on the panel where possible. So we wouldn't, for example, want all 6 organisations to be working with care leavers, or all 6 organisations to be in older people befriending, for example. A nice range is what we're after. Excuse me. Cool. Next one, please, Jake. So what we're actually asking you to sign up for, we'll be holding 6 sessions on Thursday afternoons, starting on the 26th of March. They will start with a bit of learning to work together as a team, getting a bit comfortable with each other, right through understanding Gosport, and that's where Natasha and I and the rest of the team will be really leaning on you on the panel to tell us about the context of Gosport. That's not something that we want to teach you about at all. It's something we want to learn about. We will design the fund priorities, the mechanism together, and then the last session will be a sort of mock decision-making session. We will be asking panelists to help us evaluate the project and evaluate the impact of the project, but we will be embedding that into the sessions and around the sessions as well as possible, rather than trying to do it as homework. We want to avoid that where we can. A really important thing is that all panelists will be paid equally for their time. So we will pay the individuals, your participants or your beneficiaries, at the living wage, and then we will reimburse organisations at the same rate, because we're trying to level that power rather than keep it imbalanced. We know that there will be questions and thoughts and challenges with that process, and we've got some ideas, but we'll kind of see what happens with it. And that's really as much as we can say at this point, because again, so many of the decisions will be made together, will be made by the panel. So for example, the actual fund will be sort of marketed or launched in the summer, and we would expect some panelists, if not all, to join us for assessing and awarding later in the year. but they will decide what that looks like. You know, it might be that they've designed a form and a framework and 2 or 3 of them come back to score. It might be we host some kind of interpretive dance event where they invite all of the grant seekers to come and dance their application. I mean, I kind of hope not, because that would be really weird, but fun. So what that looks like will depend on them. One question again that has come up a couple of times, and probably will again, is if your organisation is part of the panel, can you also apply for funding when that fund launches? And the answer is that will be up to the panel. That's one of those questions that I cannot answer yet. I've got one final slide before we go to questions, and this is just, how do I sign up? If after today you think, yes, I definitely want to be a part of this panel, I know I've got somebody in my team, I know I've got a service user or a beneficiary that would be great at this, there's an expression of interest form on the website. The link is there, and we'll pop it in the chat at some point today, and we'll send it out to you afterwards as well. Fill in that form, and that's how you can express your interest in joining the panel. I'm definitely still here for questions after today too. We'll have a bit of time to chat now, but if you think of something later on, tomorrow, next week, that's fine. One thing that we did spot is that the expression of interest hasn't got a deadline on it. So by the time the papers from today come out to you, it will have a deadline on it. Bethy and I will liaise and decide what that's going to be. I think that's enough of my voice. Laura, I don't know if any questions have popped up in the chat yet, or if anybody wants to come off mute and ask any questions.
I don't have any questions in the chat yet, so you've obviously done a brilliant job of covering all bases so far. So yeah, if anyone does want to pop any in the chat or just raise your hand and ask them, that's fine.
Fantastic.
I'll keep an eye on the chat.
What I might do, Jake, is ask you to stop sharing, and we'll just we'll see some faces if that's okay. Hi, Leslie. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you for that. That sounds really good. I was just checking the, so you mentioned town, and what other area was it? You said town and...
Bridgemary.
Bridgemary, that
so Bridgemary North and Bridgemary South. And
the sessions, so the 6 consecutive sessions that you mentioned, Thursday afternoons, is that right? Are they all face-to-face?
Yes.
And the expectation is that you attend everyone?
Yes. We know that stuff happens, life gets in the way.
Yeah, I can just tell right now, looking at my calendar, I'm in Scotland for one of those weeks and Plymouth in another one. So it's straight away, if that's, it's not something that I would be able to do.
I think
if someone in your organisation might be able to, Leslie.
If that's okay, then absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. If that's okay, Kirsty, that would be amazing, because we would love to be involved. But I'm sure, like yourself, you know, our calendars are so much in advance, aren't they? And it's yeah, but if someone else could, that would be amazing.
I think that will be fine. And if you know that that's going to be something that you can anticipate, pop it in the expression of interest form. I think that would be really useful information for us.
Great. Like I say, it would be yeah, someone from the team and someone who was well versed and also had the same relationship with the parent that I would. But yeah, if that was possible, that would be amazing.
Cool. Jamie, it's really helpful that they number the hands now.
Thanks a lot. I understand why you mentioned Bridgemary and town due to statistics of deprivation, but understanding Gosport, there's lots of areas of deprivation in Gosport, particularly like Elson, Fortin, and would that be against them when they put applications in?
No, absolutely not. All we're saying is that if we've got too many applications, we will prioritise that some of them are from Bridge Mary and Town.
So it is against them, yeah.
It's a bit of a tricky one, because when we started talking internally about this project, I think we've probably had more interest than we were expecting. So perhaps our answer on how we would prioritise applications is a little bit unpolished, if I'm honest.
Because although particularly like Elson, we get lots of people from Bridge Mary coming into us to use the facilities. So Bridge Mary may not have their facilities to use. And it does annoy me when I put in grant applications when people keep mentioning Bridge Mary, which is just about to get £20 million grant to improve the scene there, and Town as well. So particularly if statistics went on elderly deprivation, then Elson would probably come out top on that. You understand me?
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from. It is really tricky when you've got a whole borough that has lots of different intersecting challenges. I think it's important to note at this stage that this isn't a grant. This is being part of the process to shape where the grants go. So bring that challenge with you. You know, that would be a great thing to have in the room. I don't know if this is something that you've experienced before, Natasha, trying to sort of balance the voices in the room and where they come from.
It's also, yes, it is something we've experienced before. One of the most beautiful things about it, though, is that over those 6 weeks, we want to help these group of people start working as a team and start thinking about the complexities of what you're talking about, some of the things you're talking about, Jamie. And it never ceases to amaze me how people start to think of themselves as part of a community rather than part as an individual. So they very often will end up advocating for work that doesn't directly benefit them because they start to think as a community rather than individual. So I wouldn't assume that a panel that sort of lacked representation from a particular area, if that's how it ended up being, meant that you ended up with a panel that wouldn't support grants in that area. Actually, I think very often we've seen that that's not the case at all. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you both.
And although Elson would probably like to be involved, providing a service user from a library and hub, I don't know how Leslie feels about this with hubs, would be difficult for us, if you understand me. Yeah,
I do, and I think we know that might end up excluding some organisations at this stage. But this whole project is a real experiment to see how it fits together and how it works. And we will take feedback on every part of this process where we can get it, to be honest.
I know it's a learning process, so good luck with it.
Thank you. Hi, Emily. I think your hand was up next.
Hiya, can you all hear me okay? Yeah, great. So I have a question because my role, so as a manager, I cover the whole of the south of Hampshire. So I would be looking, a lot of our groups are volunteer led in that particular area. So I would like to invite potentially a volunteer and a service user to come to because they have a better understanding of the area. Would that still be suitable? Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
Okay.
And if there are, and we would still want to pay that volunteer for their time for this particular project, but if there are reasons why that would be a challenge either for them or for the organisation, we can chat through that on a case-by-case basis, I think.
I just think they would have a much better understanding of what the needs are in that particular area and what the challenges are that they face. So and also the volunteers have a better relationship with our service users, so they'd probably be a better person to get someone else to come along because they know them a bit better, that's all. So that's really good, thank you. I'll see if I can find any volunteers that would like to do it. Thank you.
Incredible. Thanks, Emily. Laura, did you have?
Yes,
Oh, were
we've just
you
got,
asking questions from the chat?
yeah, we've just got one saying, will the funding be just for sport activities?
That will be up to the panel. So we will need the funding awarded at the end to have a line of sight to physical activity. But what that sentence means will be sort of discussed and debated and tested by the panel. The example that I've used talking about it internally is if the panel said, we want to support mental health intervention because that will help people be better ready to then be active. I think I could take that to our trustees and our team here and get the nod. I think if they said, we want to support you to buy Lego sets for everybody, that would probably be really difficult one to see how that might lead to physical activity.
Great, thank you. The other question that's just come up is how much funding is actually available?
The pot of funding that will be available for the panel to award is £50,000. And how they decide to divide that up will be up to them. They could decide to make one grant of £50,000. They could decide to make 5 grants of £10,000. Can you tell by the slowness that my mental maths isn't great? I think if they chose to make 50 grants of £1,000, that might challenge our admin team a little bit. But if they had a really strong justification for why they wanted to do it that way, we would listen to that.
Brilliant. I'll let you go to Angela next.
Thanks. Hi, Angela.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't see if my hand was actually up or not. It kept taking it away. Yeah, I have a question. A lot of people, like myself, who I work with, are neurodivergent and might find coming to a meeting quite imposing. Are there other ways that maybe their contribution could be heard without them actually having to attend in person? I mean, there are ways I can think it might be able to be done, but it's just, it is quite, it's quite anxiety provoking sometimes for people who've not maybe done this or want to come and offer opinion, that might feel that they would not be able to attend in person. So that was kind of my question.
It's a great question and a great challenge. And if you have got thoughts on how that could happen, I would be delighted to hear them.
Okay.
I think Natasha might have had some experience of that in the past. So I'll come to you first, Natasha. But Angela, I will bow to the experts on this one.
Thanks, Angela. It's a really useful question and probably not something we can give a perfect answer to. So most of this work is going to be done by my colleagues Soraya and Dan, both of whom have a background of working with people with disabilities directly. So I would sort of reassure that they do know how to try and make things accessible within the realms of possibility. And I'd be really keen to work with you all and the people that are on your panel to try and make things as comfortable for people as possible, so we can do things like send a little video of how to get into the building that we're in beforehand, and we can make sure there's plenty of breaks, and we can make sure people have time to go and have a little bit of quiet time throughout sessions as well, and we can provide materials in lots of different ways as well. Was slightly always reliant on how other people in the meeting will support somebody else's neurodiversity to make it accessible for them, but generally see that people are very keen to sort of make allowances for people. We can start the beginning of the sessions by co-creating rules around what people need within the space as well. So there's an awful lot we would like to do to try and make it feel accessible for people and their neurodiversity, but I understand that might not overcome everything for everyone.
Thank you.
Natasha, do you also send out any materials beforehand? That's another one of the questions, just to sort of support people. I know you said about videos, perhaps to get to locations, but also just what to expect, and kind of so that people are able to anticipate that space before
we
they
can
attend.
we can do, and I've sent things in advance as well, quite a lot, so people have got stuff to review in that way as well.
Yeah, I think that's really useful. Certainly for me, a lot of the anxiety will be around, I don't know what's expected of me that day. I don't know what's going to be happening. And it gives me a chance to prepare, because again, my processing is slower. So I can't always come up with the answer right there. I can come up with the answers, but it's going to take me a bit longer to be able to do that. Because what I would hate for, and it's happened to me so many times in my lifetime, is because you're processing a bit slower or you're feeling a bit anxious, you don't answer and you come away thinking, I had so much to say and I didn't get the chance to say it. And then you feel like you've let everybody down. What I don't want is for anybody that if we become part of the panel to go away thinking that they have not had a fair crack, if that makes sense, and that to go away and worry and get anxious about, oh God, I wish I'd never done this, because I just wanted to say so much and I couldn't get it out. So whether that's writing stuff down and somebody else presenting it, recording, whatever that might be, there are plenty of ways that people who, like me, have processing issues can make that contribution, if that makes sense. I've learned to train myself over the years, because I do a lot of training and stuff, but for other people it's not quite so easy. Yeah, so thank you.
The other thing is it's a team activity, so it's sort of there is something quite beautiful. It's not you wouldn't as one individual person have to solve exactly how £50,000 is being spent. You're working together as a team, and
absolutely.
Someone might have had a very long week when they come to us on a Thursday, and they'll that week not be able to add a lot, but their colleagues might be on fire that week and they'll pull it up. Like, yeah, you're part of a team, so it's not all being put on you, Angela, or someone else to solve I get all that, of this.
But you can, as an autistic person, you can go away feeling like that, and that's what I don't want to create for anybody, is whether the intention is there or not, but if that's how it makes you feel, that's what you walk away with. Does that make sense? So Absolutely. That's what I would like to avoid for anybody that's on the panel, but particularly for somebody that if we're on the panel that might be coming, if that makes sense. I think that's we kind of really need to make sure we can do that. Yeah, thank you.
That's really helpful, Angela. Something that we have done for events is created an access pack in advance that lays out where it is, how you can get there. Sometimes we'll put things in there like, we want you to be comfortable, make sure you wear your trainers. Don't feel that you need to dress up. We will say if there's going to be food and drink, we can include stuff about the venue, which will be your space on the high street, by the way. So I'll make sure that we do an access pack for this as well, and I'll work with Natasha and the team to do maybe some introductions to the people that are running it.
Absolutely. So can I just say that I think as well, again, I can really speak from my perspective, but it's also really handy if sometimes I can go there in advance. Don't leave it till the day. So if it can be planned that somebody can have an arranged visit to walk around just to get 100%. A feel for the environment. I mean, if they're local to Gosport, then they might, but it's still quite nice to just go and have a and the other thing that I would say that I do use a lot, and I have them in my office, are these. So if I'm wearing, or in here, I just have that. If I've got a red badge on, please don't speak to me. I'm not in any way, shape or form able to speak at this moment. I'm listening, but I can't respond. If I've got a green badge on, crack on. So things like that maybe might be helpful and useful as well. Just for everybody, because sometimes people who aren't neurodivergent, autistic, whatever, don't want to talk at any particular given time. But if you've got it's like, just don't ask me at the moment. And so if everybody has them, then everybody kind of knows who's safe and who can't speak at that moment. So just some things like that to add would be good.
And that's absolutely the beauty of accessibility stuff, isn't it? Is that it benefits everybody in the end.
Indeed, it does. Yeah.
I love things like that, and I will absolutely make a note of the badges. And I mean, I'm sure that we'll use different kinds of check-ins and things like that too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hiya, just a question that's come in around whether this is just happening in Gosport or if it's happening in other areas across Hampshire.
At the moment, it is just Gosport. So we have got some money from Sport England to pilot this in Gosport, and then the £50,000 from our trustees to grant. I'm not going to lie, I think a lot of people think that PGM is risky and scary, you know, doing something in a different way, heading into the unknown, people making decisions that, you know, aren't part of the staff team. So we're trialing it in one area, and we hope to show that it's really, really successful, and then convince lots of funders to give us lots of money to do it again. Has anybody got any other questions or thoughts?
Just a question around, can we give a brief description of how the workshops will run? What kind of activities the participants will actually be doing?
I will start, and then I'll ask you to jump in, Natasha. So they will be 3 hours long, and we will provide refreshments. There's a tea and coffee bar in the space, and we'll make sure that there's some snacks that meet people's needs on the day. They will be a little bit responsive in the sense that we've got a really bare bones outline of what will be delivered, but depending on the organisations and the needs and the combination of people in the room, there will be some flexing. And in terms of the style of delivery, it will be, I think, pretty informal, a mixture of working together, discussing, moving around the space, that sort of thing. And Natasha, maybe you can speak a bit more about the sorts of things that we'll do.
Yeah, it's a mix really of a small amount of learning from Energise Me and from us about grant making and how sort of nuts and bolts of awarding a grant goes, and how you can use money as a vehicle for change in the community. But the bulk of it, I'm hoping, is learning from each other about what's working really well locally, what the priorities might be, what your sort of shared ambitions for the funding might be. And we can do that in a range of ways. It will be useful to know what support needs need to be in place, but we will try not to do it via being too boring and sitting like a lecture. We'll try and get people moving around and do a mix of giving people the opportunity to talk to each other and listen, but also giving people the opportunity to do things, particularly for those that are more introverted, be able to do things on a piece of tech if that works for everyone, or maybe just post-it notes, and people being able to get to priorities. It's £50,000. It's way more money than I've got in my bank account, to be honest, but it is not enough money to solve every challenge for every person that comes to be part of this work. So there is a little bit of sort of narrowing down to what are shared goals and shared priorities across each other. So I'm hoping we can keep it quite fun and quite light, but it's difficult decisions to be made about what feels most important. I rarely see people completely fall out, but it is, you know, a hard bit of in fact, I don't see people completely fall out, but it is a hard decision to make about what is most important in the community. So we'll try and do it in fun and light-hearted ways as well.
And just to add to that, that will extend into how we get feedback from people about the process and how we evaluate the project. Those sorts of methods of evaluation will be, it won't necessarily be, you know, filling in lengthy, boring forms. It will be asking you to pick a Lego figure. I don't know why I've got Lego on the brain today. Pick a Lego figure that represents how you feel about it. You know, it will be fun stuff like that. Jamie, did you have another question? Or you're still on mute, Jamie?
There we go. Just something to think about, because I am involved in the grants board already. And nowadays we're finding a lot of the applications coming in generated by AI. And it's because I'm attached to the council can do all the due diligence and checking names, addresses and bank accounts. But if you've got people that are not got that facility available to them, how will you know you're dealing with real people, you know, or genuine applications?
I think that's something that we'll discuss and decide together.
I don't know if Energise can go through and do the checks for you without releasing money, etc.
So again, it's something that we'll discuss and decide together. What level of due diligence the panel think is appropriate. As the funder, we will have a certain bare minimum that we'll need to meet. And yes, we'll be able to support with that if they need it.
Yeah, because some of these AI applications are extremely good. Just a heads up on that one.
Kirsty.
I wondered whether you'd be taking any learning from different programs that have run previously. So, for instance, in Gosport, for those that have been around for quite a long time, we used to have the You Decide. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Jamie, you might do, yep. And there is learning to be taken from that as well. I think this is very, very different, as in you've got a panel of people from the Gosport community. You Decide always felt very brutal to organisations that had to present to local residents, and you had young people presenting, and then they were told there and then that they didn't get the funding. And so I think there's lots of learning that we could take from things that have happened in Gosport previously. Good things and, you know, things to learn about.
I mean, anything like that, if you've got learning to share, hit me up for a coffee. I'll buy the coffee. Tell me all about it.
Sounds good.
We don't need an excuse to get together for a coffee and a catch up, do we?
Absolutely not. There's got to be some perks.
You're all welcome. I think that was my my little nudge. That was the door opening and somebody saying it's 1 o'clock. So we have reached the end of our time together. Thank you very much for giving up your lunch break, if that's what you've done, or postponing your lunch, which might also be as hard. I will get the recording, the slides, the questions, the links to the form, all of that will come out to you, if not tomorrow, Monday. And I hope that I get to see some of you in March to work together on a really exciting project. Anything comes up in the meantime, please do drop me an email. And thank you very much.